Standing on the edge of the Indian subcontinent, and it really does feel as though I'm being pushed into the sea by 100 million people. But I've come here to see some highly specialised fishing skills and how people survive in the oldest existing civilization on the planet.
250,000 people live here. They're called the Vadabalaja. They live on the Bay of Bengal in Andhra Pradesh on India's Coromandel coast. They are Hindus, a faith that's thousands of years old. I feel surrounded by a multitude of sounds, images and gods. It's a privilege to be accepted and blessed by one of their priests and to experience their ancient world of myth and ritual, with incense to purify. I feel welcomed into their culture. This is a very different place. I'm usually in remote, self-sufficient communities, but here the beach is home to a fishing caste. From birth, the local people survive by specialising in just one skill, and they rely on other groups for everything else. That's how the Indian caste system works.
This is the most intimate village I've ever stayed in. The people here live literally cheek by jowl. The strange thing is that the life either focuses here in the village or out at sea. Just 100 metres inland are totally different communities that these people won't even marry into.
One caste only tend palm trees. Another only weave baskets from the leaves. The surf of the Coromandel coast is dangerous. The riptides are lethal. Many people have been swept out to sea. Through their play, the children learn to be expert swimmers. Nowadays, plastic bags make great aids for body surfing, but traditionally, it was always wood that kept them afloat.
The fishermen here are still using one of the earliest of all boats. You can see it in its most basic form here on these inland creeks. All it is a raft of logs lashed together. Mind you, they've been shaped at the ends to enable it to cut through the water better. Now with this, the fisherman has a stable platform on which he can float out far from the bank to cast his nets. This is the simple cast net, and to me it's the most elegant of all fishing nets. Its secret lies in this necklace of lead weights at its hem, which means that the rim sinks faster than the middle, ensnaring any fish beneath it. The fishermen here are real specialists in nets. They employ all sorts of designs for varying circumstances.
But to reach the rich fishing beyond the surf, they've invented a very special boat. It's not strictly speaking a boat with a watertight hull, more a raft of logs. The key to its success is a high prow, which lifts it over the surf. It's called a katu maram, which literally translated means logs tied together, and it's the origin of our word catamaran.
To get off the beach, you've got to get through that surf, and that means picking the right wave. Now, I've been watching these guys for a couple of days. They don't always get it right.
The waves come in cycles, a group of large breakers followed by smaller waves. The trick is to catch the last large breaker which launches you out into the smaller waves that are coming in. Sometimes the men can wait for 15 to 20 minutes reading the waves. It's the most experienced man who decides when to go for it. A boat needs propulsion and steerage. Besides the paddles that get you through the surf, there is the big sweep paddle at the back, which doubles as both a rudder and an oar, propelling the boat forward. An important piece of equipment is this lateen sail.
About 13 years ago, an Australian surf expert and a Danish sailmaker were invited out here to see if they could improve this design. Well, they studied it for 3 years, and the conclusion they came to was there was no way of making it any better. Of course, when you've got a sail, you also have to have a centreboard, and that's right here.
The centreboard prevents the boat capsizing in strong winds. The crews hunt in pairs, trawling their nets between two boats. As they cast their nets out, they sail apart on opposite tacks, pulling the net out between them. They're using a trammel net to catch prawns. They'll trawl these nets through the sea for at least an hour. Then they'll lower their sail to reduce the tension on the net so that it can be hauled in. When not under sail, the rear oarsman still has to keep the boat underway to hold it on course. I can tell you, you need good sea legs to stay upright on these slippery logs. Finally, the two boats come together. This was their third trawl, but still no catch. That's been happening a lot this year. The boys serve an apprenticeship of 5 to 7 years before being accepted as fully fledged fishermen. Only then can they earn their share of the catch. Traders come to the village selling cooking oil to the women. This man is from a special caste that trains cattle. For only a small price, this bullock will tell your fortune. The women maintain the village and raise the children. Washing and cooking are done outside the huts. I notice they're surprisingly forthright and don't put up with any nonsense from the men. In India, cooks take the food to the knife rather than the other way round. Certainly one advantage to that when you live on a sand dune is that you get less sand in your meal. Andhra Pradesh has the hottest and spiciest food in India. They use chilies in almost everything. With a kilo of filleted ribbon fish, Gangayama makes a fish curry. She's using a lot of turmeric and some methi leaves, and 8 super hot chilies. Sesame oil is heated over the wood fire, and the marinated fish is seared. She rinses the marinade off her hands into the pot. Nothing is wasted. It's simmered for 20 minutes. The rice water is poured off and kept for her small children. Clean drinking water is always at a premium. The rice is strained through an old mosquito net. This curry will probably blow your head off. Coming back from fishing, I can see just how well adapted these boats are. They ride in on the waves like giant surfboards, and they can't be swamped because, like a sieve, the water simply passes straight out between the planks. But most important of all, they can be dismantled and carried out of reach of cyclones that wreak havoc on this coast. Such freak storms can happen at any time and are incredibly destructive, flattening entire villages and causing men to be lost at sea. These logs are very precious to the men, as they can no longer obtain them. The traditional woods, cottonwood and chinaberry, which are buoyant and water-resistant, have all been felled in this area. Now they're using fiberglass, which has doubled the size of the boats. But able to carry twice the number of crew and much larger nets, in only 5 years, 60% of the fleet has moved over to fiberglass. The new boats are modelled on the traditional log raft, preserving the same shape of prow for its ability to break through the waves. These boats have to be powered by engines, but if they break up in high seas, the engine can drag them down, causing men to perish. For me, you can't beat the original design.
In my experience, every part of the world has one tree which is particularly useful. Here, there's a tree that literally makes life possible by drawing up moisture from the dry, sandy soil, which people then tap and drink. It's this one, the Palmyra palm. Local tradition says that this tree has 801 uses. This is the first.
The fronds of many palm trees can be used in this way. First, you remove the serrated edges of the frond before carefully separating the outer fibres, which can be easily split off.
This outer strip of fibre from the frond makes excellent binding ties for tying together boats to thatching.
Palmyra palms are often 40 feet high, and there's a special caste who climb them. First, he sharpens his pruning hook on a soft wooden pole coated with finely ground quartz. His life depends on his harness, made from palm fibre. At the top, the harness takes his weight, freeing his hands to prune the tree. He knows just how many leaves to cut off to minimize transpiration, so that more sap goes to the fruit, making it juicier. The leaves aren't wasted, because here in India, they're used by a special caste of basket makers. During the monsoon season, the palm leaf thatch withstands the downpour. 6 layers of leaves, 30 centimetres thick, completely waterproof the shelter. The rains do bring some benefits, good clean drinking water, and the baby's bottom gets cleaned. The men sit under their thatch and prepare their nets, ready for the start of the main fishing season, which begins just after the monsoons. In September, the community worships Ganesh, the elephant-headed god who is the remover of obstacles. Everyone prays to Ganesh before embarking on any new mission. After 9 days of worshipping, Ganesh is cast into the waters. Hindus believe everything was created out of the oceans, and so everything must return there. With the onset of good weather, everyone heads for the open seas, with lunch suspended safely in the prow. The helmsman moulds a ball of sand, reminding the boat to return safely to land before putting it back on the beach as a kind of spiritual anchor. A lime is sliced and passed over the boat to absorb any evil or bad luck. Not all make it first time. Fishermen who can't afford a boat or who have lost theirs at sea can earn a living hauling in seine nets. These arch out to sea and back to the beach. 2.5 kilometres from end to end. It takes 4 to 5 hours, even with the tide behind it, to pull it in. The catch is sold on the beach. The net owner gets half of the proceeds, and the rest is shared between the 40 or more haulers. Today they caught sardines, crabs and shrimps, but the main catch is horse mackerel. The children of the haulers are allowed to take a small portion home for dinner. They've been catching prawns. In the past, prawns only fetched a low price on the Indian market, but now they are one of India's leading exports. 80% of the buyers are women, but surprisingly, the wives of the fishermen have no claim on the fish their husbands catch, and they have to wait to buy the fish in open auction. The women preserve the fish by salting and drying so that it can be transported far inland. Once a week, they sell some of their fish at the local market. It's essential they make a profit so that they can buy their groceries from other specialist castes. Inevitably, haggling is down to the last half penny.
When the fishermen aren't on the sea, they spend most of their time mending their nets. It's the nearest thing they've got to a men's club.
Like hunters everywhere, talk is of the tools of the trade. It was great to exchange netting techniques. They had no trouble keeping up with my knots, but I had to work hard to keep up with theirs because their hands move so quickly. But moments like this are really special when you communicate through actions rather than words. I asked the women what the men do when they're not at sea.
Fishermen anywhere in the world would recognise these techniques. They're using the basic sheet bend to lock the mesh, but they reinforce it with a second half hitch, just to make sure it doesn't slip. This is a trammel net, designed to entangle prawns, and it does that in a clever way. Firstly, they get entangled in this fine mesh, and then that fine mesh net gets pocketed up in a much larger mesh net on either side of it. That prevents the prawns from moving around and becoming damaged. It's astonishing how many different types of net there are to be found drying on the beaches here.
Increasingly, the international market is affecting the local economy. Any boat with a big catch goes straight to a large harbour down the coast. These are anchovies, ribbon fish and shrimps. For the women, haggling at the harbour is big business. They get higher prices by selling direct to the export market. Everybody's after one of these, a female prawn. She's carrying 500,000 eggs and auctions to the local prawn farms at 20,000 rupees. That's about £300. Sell 3 like her and you can order a brand new fiberglass catamaran. Even prawn larvae, which hatch in the surf zone, bring a high price. These people sieve the surf for them both day and night.
If they sell 100 baby prawns into the global market, they can feed their family for one day. To do this, they're using a new type of net that incorporates mosquito netting.
Tragically, nets this fine catch the small fry of many species. This is what they're after, the larvae, which will be grown on to maturity in the prawn farms. But there's an ecological price to pay.
Only a small proportion of what actually gets caught can be sold. 98% of it is cast up onto the sand to die. Sadly, that contains the baby fish of the future.
There used to be only one ice factory by this harbour. Now there are 4 to satisfy the worldwide demand for prawns. The fishing casts on the Coromandel coast are vulnerable to outside commercial pressure. Despite the fact that their catches have fallen by 40% in the last 3 years, they still believe that prawns mean cash, and plenty of it.
These people are caught up in a gold rush for prawns. It's amazing, but within 48 hours, their catches can be on dining tables in Tokyo or even London. But what I've really discovered by coming here is that the futures of small communities like this are being swept along by a new sort of tide, the boom and bust of our global market. We really are all part of the same world.